This is going to be your guide to using Houndstone in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So this Pokemon is made to do one thing. It has one gimmick, and that's using Last Respects. So a signature move that gets pretty wild. 50 base power, but plus 50 power for each time a party member has fainted. And it's for each party member fainted, which means if they get revived in some kind of way, you can actually have that Pokemon faint again and then get another 50 power. So that might be useful for some combos later on. But a 100 base power move, pretty good. Earthquake, kind of the ubiquitous, this is a strong move. So after one Pokemon faints, you have an Earthquake for ghost types. And then it just keeps on scaling and getting more powerful from there. Now, if you look at this though, not going to get too crazy with the stats. 101 attack, 68 on the speed. This Pokemon was made very specifically to not get too crazy or too sweepy with the Last Respects. And since it's a really slow Pokemon, you kind of just get to absorb a hit, KO something with the Last Respects once it's charged up, maybe do it again if you're full tank invested. That's kind of it. Also, in 3v3, having a 150 power move because 2 of your allies faint on a 101 attacking Pokemon, actually not that insane. So the Pokemon, it's alright to bad because we just don't see it. It's very specific to use, kind of only viable in 6v6, but even then, it's not really that viable in 6v6 because there's going to be more Pokemon on the opposing team that can stop it. You want to know how to stop Houndstone? Normal Pokemon, or Terra Normal, or Sucker Punch in some situations. So that's where the abilities come into play, and there is some diversity at Houndstone that can make it hard to play around, but also easy to predict at the same time. So it has the Fluffy ability or Sand Rush. If Sandstorm is active, Pokemon speed is doubled. Oh, that actually makes the 68 speed kind of sweepy, but now you have to dedicate sacrificing Pokemon on your team to charge up the Last Respects. So that means you need a dedicated Sandstorm Pokemon so you don't just get outsped or KO'd, and that's for a move that can be immune, resisted, or sucker punched. It takes so much investment into the Houndstone to get a pretty good reward, but it's not good enough compared to all the other crazy things going on in Pokemon, which is why we don't really see it. There's also the Fluffy angle. So Fluffy, Pokemon takes half damage from contact moves, which is going to be a lot of physical moves. So as like a dedicated physical tank, you do this, you're like a 4-5 hit KO, and that can get dangerous, even in like 3v3s or 6v6, where the opponent has mostly physical Pokemon or only physical Pokemon left. Then they just can't damage you, and you break through them on the Last Respects, but you can still get outsped, special attacks, things like that. It's pretty much like building the team around Houndstone to try to pop off, but that leaves a lot of ways that this can just go very wrong. Now, unpredictability can be a very powerful thing in Pokemon. You have one bad read, and it could lead to getting swept. With Houndstone, though, you can actually see what it's going to do. Oh, they have a sand-setting Pokemon on their team, then that means Houndstone's going to have the Sand Rush and go for the sweeping, so you play to set up around that. If they don't have it, then it's most likely Fluffy Bulk, and then the decision is like, well, is it a bulky one, or is it going to like Choice Scarf outspeed? Choice Scarf on 68 speed. It can exist, but it's not great. So you're not faster than a 130 base speed Pokemon, which leads to even more like weirdness in the matchup and the failings of Houndstone. But it also means that you outspeed everything below Jolteon pretty much. So like 128 speed, but we only have the 126. So you actually hit a good amount, and then being able to outspeed a sweeping Pokemon with a high base power move if they have low defenses, that can be pretty alright. But like I said, you have to invest a lot into Houndstone, pretty much all in on revolving around it as your win condition. So what does the reward look like? And that's where things kind of get weird. So I want to show a jolly, fluffy Choice Scarf matchup into something like the Meowscarada, because that's what we're trying to outspeed. And if you don't have the Fluffy, a Choice Band Meowscarada just one-shot you on Sucker Punch. So even if you have like Sand Rush, that doesn't matter. Anything else the Houndstone's trying to do doesn't matter because Sucker Punch just gets you. So let's go back to the Fluffy ability. There's still like a lot of other weird things because there's physical moves that don't make contact. So the Flower Trick does a lot of damage. And depending on how charged up Last Respects is, it's also not doing crazy amount to a fairly frail Pokemon. So that's where the hindrance of the 101 attack is. So one Pokemon fainted, 2 Pokemon fainted, and this is where now the numbers also kind of get weird. So like 2 Pokemon fainted, into a not resisted Pokemon has a decent chance to KO, so something like the Jolteon. So a frail 70-something sweeper can get KO'd by the Jolly Nature, so that goes back into the speed tiers we showed after 2 Pokemon getting fainted. So as long as like it's not a normal type Pokemon or you've already kind of dealt with that, you can clean up alright on just 2 KOs with the Houndstone, and then the goal is to, you know, just get completely out of control, have all of your other Pokemon faint, and then just go into the crazy damage. But that's where it's like, well, you just lose half your damage on a resisted hit, and it does nothing if Last Respects is immune. So 4 Pokemon KO'd and then 5 Pokemon KO'd. So a Dark Tank doesn't get completely run over by the Houndstone. I guess you can also go Terra Ghost into it if you know the opponent isn't going to have like normal type moves or something, and you just all in completely invest into the Houndstone to get the most damage. Then you can actually like find more damage. But if you aren't there, even a Meowscarada survives after a couple of KOs, so like Battle Stadium stuff, and it's kind of awkward, especially like Sucker Punch, KO, Weirdness, Flower Trick for extra damage, and then if Houndstone just kind of gets chipped down or outsped or hit by a special attack, then it looks pretty bad for the Houndstone, even in 6v6. That's kind of a weird thing. After thinking about it, going into numbers, reviewing this, Houndstone is weaker in 6v6 than 3v3 because there's just going to be more ways to counter and play around the blatant win condition of the Houndstone, which made me think like, okay, no one's going to expect the Houndstone in 3v3 because Houndstone is just fundamentally a bad Pokemon, unless like you really go into the mechanics and try to play it super hard. So Revival Blessing on Battle Stadium with Sandstream might be the way to do it. I kind of want to build this team and see if it just can win. So the thing about Houndstone is that it's too gimmicky to be good, and anyone that says, oh, but it's banned Smogon, they're just bad at Pokemon, because Smogon players are just casuals that can't handle real Pokemon. So anyone that actually thinks Smogon has ever made a valid ban just sucks at the game, so we can discount that, we can remove that from the argument. But since Houndstone is like too gimmicky to be good, maybe if you just go like 300% all-in complete gimmick, you can get something decent out of this. So my idea is you lead Hippowdon, you Stealth Rocks, you Phase, you do whatever until you get KO'd, bring in Palmot, Revival Blessing, switch into Hippowdon, maybe it gets a safe switch, maybe it gets KO'd again or something. Palmot comes in, Revival Blessing again, and then Hippowdon comes back in, gets KO'd. Now Houndstone actually charged up for the 3v3. A 250 base power Houndstone that has the freedom to Terra Ghost might actually be really scary, especially if it can just clean up on the Sand Rush and then also have some other outs. Now, Choice Band Houndstone is something else you can see on the Fluffy just to kind of remove any chance for the opponent to respond to it, but then that just kind of goes into the horrible Smogon ban logic where it's simultaneously Scarfed, Fluffy, Sandstream in Sandstorm, or Sandrush in Sandstorm, and Choice Banded, therefore it has no counters. That's not real Pokemon, so you have to be very careful about your moveset and the bad situations that just hard counter yourself in. So I mean, like, yeah, Choice Band brings a lot of damage, but if we're relying on that to win the game on Houndstone, that can be really bad if they have a resisting or tank or a normal type Pokemon, or even a Sucker Punch into our Sandrush like we showed with the Meowscarada actually has KO threat. Now we can get over most of the issues with this moveset, like Body Press, you just hit a normal type Pokemon for super effective damage, that's going to be pretty cool. Play Rough into Dark type Pokemon, so that's going to be a resistance down on the Last Respects. And then like the Terra typing is maybe where you have to just go Fairy. That way if there is a Sucker Punch threat, well, Terra Fairy into Play Rough, that KOs that, you still have your main Ghost, and Last Respect should be doing enough damage in most situations, or you just like 2-hit KO a tank while outspeeding them in Sand, so you'll be fine. That just kind of leaves the item here. So I don't think we're in the world where you just need a muscle band to like edge out the damage. But if you're actually barely not getting KOs and everything surviving like just slight red bar, then maybe we might be in a muscle band meta just because of power creep, and that's hard to predict kind of stuff. Or you just go for the Citrus Berry. That way if they don't get KO'd, you take the hit, you Citrus Berry, and then you still have Sand, and then you just finish everything else off. Also, for like the normal type Pokemon that are 2-hit KOs on the Body Press or something, the not direct KOs without the Last Respects or something, you can just kind of run like this. So now we just kind of deal with everything. Now this last move slot can kind of be whatever. I like the Roar here, just in case, like, as you were sacrificing off all your Pokemon, the opponent got some kind of setup that you can then deal with on the Roar. But Will-O-Wisp is a really good option too, because now it might not force the Terra Fairy, but you're not Terra Palmot or Hippowdon in like 99.9% of situations. So yeah, you just have the Terra Fairy there for whenever there's any kind of threat. But maybe you just need to Will-O-Wisp something. Maybe you need to outspeed it, get the burn, get that chip. There's also Stealth Rock's damage, and then you can do whatever you need to finish off the opposing Pokemon. So the Will-O-Wisp can be pretty good here. And that's kind of it. I feel like it's going to take a little bit of work to kind of get the perfect Houndstone that's going to work in most of your situations. So if you keep on losing to something, or if something like slightly goes wrong, then you adapt the moveset to that. You adapt what you want the Hippo to do. Maybe you want the Slack Off here in some place. Like, the problem is, if Hippowdon comes in on the last turn of Sandstorm, and then you don't get the Sandstream reactivated on, like, your multi-KO for the Houndstone, that could be really bad. So you're thinking, oh, Smooth Rock, I need all 8 turns here. But actually, you probably don't, because if you just get the 5 turns, like, Hippowdon gets KO'd, then you have 4 turns left, well, there's only 3 Pokemon on the opponent's team in Battle Stadium, so you really only need 4 turns of sand, and on that last turn, they outspeed you. You have enough natural bulk to most likely survive, and then still find the KO anyways. So while it's like, oh, Smooth Rock, I just have forever, this actually might be overkill, and it can hurt you, because then, again, sand is still up when Hippowdon comes in for the last time, and that can be really bad. So, leftovers on the Hippowdon, that's a thing. It's also why we have Protect on the Palmot, and why Protect is also an option on the Hippowdon. That way, like, oh, you protect, you get your pace down, you understand the tempo, you kind of time it out to where now Sandstream is going to reset when Hippowdon comes in for the last time, then Hippowdon gets the most Sand Rush, and that's how you want to play it. So, a lot of weird technical stuff to pay attention to, but if you get it, it's really cool. Might be wondering why Body Slam, Paralysis Chance, just helps your win condition. Nuzzle, Paralysis Chance, Mach Punch, you can just outspeed, hit the opponent. I would say break a Sash, but between Stealth Rocks and Sandstream, Sash probably already broken. But I mean, like, that extra little bit of damage that might help out into the Body Press normal type matchup or something like that. Just anything that edges the win condition closer to Houndstone and just kind of sets it up. So supportive stuff, and then again, all in on the Houndstone gimmick, and then hope for the best. So I think that's going to be the angle for singles, which makes it better than 6v6, because so much more can go wrong in the 6v6. Another interesting thing is, like, doubles Houndstone. You have Will-O-Wisp, you have Yawn, you have Trick, you have all of this, like, supportive stuff that can be really nasty. So, like, Sand Rush doubles lead Houndstone with a Sandstream to, like, anti-weather the opponent and also get your own setup and do some weird stuff. You have Charm under speed, Ally Switch. You could actually do, like, Snarl. There's like a kit of support here that's pretty wacky on the Houndstone that could get pretty interesting. So it's like some kind of max hit points, max speed, bulky support Pokemon. It can be surprisingly good in Sand and maybe like open up some opportunities there. So that could be fun to explore in doubles. But until Wolfie VGC finally gets banned for being the biggest liar, cheater, and thief in Pokemon, there's really no point playing doubles. So I just stick to singles and I try to come up with the cool and fun ways of breaking that down. And I don't know, like, has the game gone full circle? Has the meta gotten so ugly that these gimmicky ideas that for like the last decade have been really fun but not consistently competitive, do those just work again? Can you actually just like all in on some kind of weather team sweep, and because people are so busy trying to anti-set up or just do these very one-dimensional strategies, you actually just kind of try to remove counterplay that way and it can be successful? Game Freak made this Pokemon and gave it the stats and abilities and all of this stuff for a reason. It has one of the most powerful single-dimensional moves ever. You just get 300 base power at the end of the game. But then there's only so much you can do with it. And even though there isn't a lot of care for like 6v6, especially with the 20-minute battle timer and all the other ugliness going on, like, was this Pokemon made to be a sand, like, final sweeping Pokemon in even 4v4 doubles? To where maybe there's like some kind of world where this is meant to KO something, take a hit, KO, and then win the final 1v2 on Last Respects only having 3 KOs under its belt, so being 200 base power, which means if you actually like Revival Blessing, combo, and do all this weird unviable stuff together, it actually becomes viable. I don't know, some weird stuff on the Houndstone can be fun. but unless you're actually like going all in on it, just a not good Pokemon. And even going all in makes it to where you're pretty easy to counterplay. If like any part of that chain goes wrong, you just lose, because now you have 3 not good pieces that are just falling apart. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.